We get used to in this country the all you can eat, eating till you're full. In my Chinese medicine courses, we learned how the stomach only likes to be 80% full. If you overeat, you damage that stomach chi, and then you can have more nausea. You don't make good stomach acid. You don't make good digestive enzymes. You feel like you've got it just a pit sitting there in the stomach. Welcome back to Living on Purpose. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Allison Brumley, a naturopathic physician, and I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Karen Cox, who is a board-certified health and wellness coach. And today we're going to talk about how to nourish your body to get the best you can get out of your hormone balancing, energy. Have you noticed that you've eaten foods and that make you feel very sluggish and tired versus foods where you feel lighter and have more energy? There are some tricks to that. What do you tell people when they come into you with what they're eating and how they feel?
One of my first thoughts is it's one of the biggest aha moments for people when they really notice what they eat and how that correlates to how they feel. Not only with their energy, but also their mood can be very affected by what they eat. So one of the first places we start is noticing and keeping a food journal to really get to the pinpoint of what really makes me feel good and what really I've got to avoid. I've got to avoid that. I know for myself, I can't eat a lot of sugar. You know, some people can. I must not burn it off as fast because I can get a really high sugar rush really fast, and then I can get grouchy. It really does affect my mood as well as like a energy dump. So I've noticed that I can have a little sugar, but I can't ever eat a whole bag or a whole candy bar or anything like that. It just
Yeah, I'd say I see that the most, that when people overdo it on sugar, they crash after that. It can be a little bit like caffeine. Mm-hmm. When the caffeine burns up, you're done. I'll also see that with hypoglycemia. If you skip meals or one of the worst things is to get that hangry sensation and eat a Snickers bar. Love the commercials. They're great, but it's terrible for your health. It would be the worst thing. And so, if I think about the best way to eat for hormonal balance, it's that 3 meals a day. Some people do need a snack, and I think an afternoon snack is fine, or we could go back to thinking about tea time in the afternoon. And then some people do the intermittent fasting, and that can be really helpful for people if they don't crash, if they skip a breakfast. Some people can do that and some people can't. The lower your adrenal reserves are, the less capable you are of fasting for a very long time. You get lightheaded, shaky, dizzy, headaches, and grumpy. There's that hangry sensation. And so there are some tricks to achieving that. In one of the earlier episodes, I talked about how important fat is. And so I'm gonna stick with that for a minute. As we look at the biochemistry of how we make hormones, it starts with cholesterol. So we go from cholesterol, it goes to the adrenal gland and makes pregnenolone. And then pregnenolone splits off and you make progesterone in the ovary, DHEA in the adrenal gland. And then on that progesterone side, it can go further in the adrenal gland to make cortisol. And then with this DHEA pathway, you're making estrogens and testosterone. So it all comes from cholesterol. And if you have a cholesterol sitting at 50 or 60, doesn't cut it. It's not going to be enough. You want a cholesterol level as close to the high limit. In the lab reports, it's 99. The cutoff is 99. Anything over 99, they flag high. And so people will come to me and say, oh, I have high cholesterol and it's 129. I'm like, it's fabulous. It's fabulous to have cholesterol at 129. You don't want triglycerides high, and that goes back to the sugar talk. is that if you eat too many refined carbohydrates, that's your white flour, white sugar, then you can get more insulin resistant from that. So we could talk about the hormone insulin for a little bit. Insulin is, all the talk with whether you're looking at prediabetes, diabetes, and weight gain, fatigue, and inflammation. Lots of insulin resistance, it means lots of fatigue and lots of inflammation. So in order to really not raise the insulin level much, the best foods you have are the fats. So we're talking about healthy fats, not French fries and potato chips. Those are on the avoid. If you really love them, I really love them. I could eat a bag of potato chips or French fries every day. I'm a salty, crunchy person. And, but, restrict that to just once in a while. But the most beneficial fats are your nuts and seeds. You've got your flaxseed, pumpkin seed, the sesame seed and sunflower seed that we use in the seed cycling. So you've got those seeds that you're using either the follicular phase or the luteal phase, which is estrogen phase and progesterone phase. And we do have a link for you for that seed cycling. So you've got those seeds. There's all the nuts. They've got good fats. Walnuts particularly good. Then you've got avocados, you've got fish, fatty fish, more your salmon and sardine type fish. And you have to be somewhat careful with certain fish with heavy metal content and things like that. So, in pregnancy, they're really limiting tuna fish. I mean, probably don't eat tuna fish when you're pregnant, but not often. And but if you can eat those healthy fats, then you're going to make more hormone. And what's interesting is that toxins, when you're exposed to toxins, the majority of them are fat soluble. So they really like to get stored in our fat cells. I call it adipose tissue because it sounds so much better than a fat cell. But they get stored there. So very oftentimes, if you're carrying a little more weight, you can tuck away more toxins easier than if you're very thin. If you're very thin, you got nowhere to put them. They're in your brain, your bones, muscles. And but the healthy fats, and the only time I see issues really with that are sometimes with gallbladder dysfunction. You have to be somewhat careful with the fat. But usually even with the gallbladder, healthy fats do not affect you the same way the unhealthy fats do. So there's been a lot of talk about the seed oils. Anything processed is going to have the canola oil, the soybean oil, all of your salad dressings, and nobody should be buying salad dressing. You make your own salad dressing. They do have some made with olive oil or avocado oil, but it's so easy to make your own. We'll put a recipe on this episode too for that.
Yeah, and show our listeners how easy it is. And really, fat, we're talking about, it doesn't take much to be impactful in the health. We see some of these diets being formed of ratios of fat, but you have to remember that fat per se carries a lot more calories to burn than a carbohydrate. So we need healthy fats, but we need to also remember that a little goes a long way in helping to make those good hormones in our body.
Yeah, I like that. It made me think about what my recommendation for almost every patient is to follow a Mediterranean diet. And a lot of people don't know what that means. They think Mediterranean, they have to be, eating Greek and Italian and, everything. But what it really means is that it's very much plant-based with moderate amounts of animal proteins and healthy fats.
And with that plant-based, eating the color of the rainbow throughout the week. So then we are getting a whole variety of those micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the things that help build the cell. And if we're just eating greens all the time, we're missing the purples and the reds and the oranges. So
true.
I like to say eat the color of the rainbow throughout the whole week. You can't really eat it all in a day, but throughout a week you can get a good amount of color in your diet.
Yeah, and even week to week. You go grocery shopping, you buy some veggies that you're going to use that week, and then the next week you buy different veggies and fruits. They're very high in antioxidants as well, which your antioxidants are such good cell protectors. And we get a lot of oxidative damage from the toxins. So it all gets pulled together, looking at nourishing your body, detoxing your body, sleeping well, all of those things just help. So it's just making these small incremental changes that over a few years is a huge impact on health. Really trying to reduce the risk of getting cancer, reduce the risk of getting a neurodegenerative disease, and then really reducing your risk for needing hysterectomies or ablations or all those things that the hormonal issues can lead us to feel like we need. Just, if it's a problem, take it out. In conventional medicine, they just don't have any qualms about that at all. It's like, oh, your gallbladder's dysfunctional, let's just take it out. Sometimes that's the best course, but not always.
Right. And, sometimes, I know, especially with women, in talking to women about nourishing their bodies, the big, how do I find time to cook that way, to chop vegetables? Do you have any hints? I know I do, but do you have some
Well,
hints
I'll bring
with that?
up the couple that I'm thinking of right now. The first one I thought of is the meal prepping. If you can take a day on the weekend when you don't have as many things to do and cook up a bigger amount of what you like to eat, throw some in the freezer so that it's just, you can pull it out in the morning, it thaws, you have it in the evening. I like protein in the morning, and if people need to supplement with a protein shake, I'm okay with that. I don't like people eating eggs every day. They come up a lot on food sensitivity testing, so I'm typically saying eggs maybe 3 times a week. But then again, I do have people that do eggs every day and they love it. They feel so good. But protein in the morning is one of the most important things. And then meal prepping. And then the other thing that I thought of with that is that I have seen neighborhoods where the women that are home, they will collectively each take a day and make up a big salad and then just drop it off in a mason jar a mason jar, and put it on all the front porch of the women who are in their group. So then for lunch, you get a good salad. You have to make it maybe once a week, if you have, five women in your group. And so I've seen that work well for some women.
Yeah, I love that. I also love batch cooking. So if you're making a big pot of soup with lots of good vegetables in it and some protein, make a big batch of it, and then you can freeze. You can do that with really about anything that you make. If you double the recipe or triple the recipe and then freeze in portions is a good thing. I think sometimes it becomes an excuse that we can't eat healthy because we need something quick. But if you think about the time that it takes you to wait for your DoorDash to come or go pick it up, that's time that you could actually be chopping and cooking your vegetables and things. Because when you start to notice how you feel when you cook and prep your meals and get these nutrients in, it actually creates more time in your life because you have more energy. You don't feel as sluggish. And so I really try to encourage people to really think about when they're saying, I don't have time to cook. Mm-hmm. And also get the family involved.
I like that a lot.
Cook together. When children learn to cook, they actually eat better. Mm-hmm. When children learn to garden, they actually like vegetables. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of get the family involved in the meal prep process, mm-hmm. in the growing of the food and the things that take place. And maybe you don't live in an area where you can grow a garden, and maybe fresh fruits and vegetables aren't an option for you. But there is a lot of services out there where you can have a box of vegetables shipped to your home. and even mismatched fruits and vegetables that come at a really good price. So we can put some of those links in these show notes for you to find some good resources and then get a process. It really is get a process, have a day of prepping and kind of plan out those things for yourselves.
Yeah, those are all really good ideas. I was just thinking about Azure Standard. I know a number of women across the country that use Azure Standard. It comes out of California, but they've got everything. Organic produce, and they deliver it across the country. So you can log on to their website, and we'll put the link below. With foods, so eating fatty foods, healthy fatty foods, is a very good thing for being able to make enough hormone. And then fats can help clean out the fat cells of toxins too. So you're kind of replacing cells all the time and need to make new cell membranes. And so the healthy fats help clean things up too. Probably especially the omega-3, the fish oil. So eating salmon or sardine can be extremely helpful. And then really thinking about, making it easy on yourself. I liked what you were talking about. And I think it's the same with sleep, is that you've got the pros and the cons. If you don't do it, then something else can become worse, and you think you don't have the time, but actually you end up saving time if you actually plan for and make those. So, I say, meals can be as easy as doing some celery and almond butter or a nut butter. Peanut butter's not my favorite. I know people love it. It all has aflatoxin on it. It's got a mold, so a little peanut butter's fine. A lot is probably not fine. And but doing that, or an apple and almond butter, banana and almond butter. You're going to get a little more sugar with the apple and the banana. Bananas have less sugar if they don't have any brown spots on them. So that can help a little bit with the sugar, if you get a sugar spike. And celery's my favorite. And celery's one of those that's better organic. If you live near a Costco, you're in luck. If you're not, grow your own or call Azure Standard. There are some ways to get it. And there are a lot, like you were mentioning, of the community gardening boxes. That you've got somebody in your community that's growing a bunch of vegetables and fruit, and you get a box every week.
Yeah, those are really great ideas. So let's talk a little bit more about blood sugar health, because I know that does affect our hormones. It's really affecting the hormone imbalance of PCOS, infertility, some things that are happening. So talk to us about why that sugar response and buildup is harmful for hormones.
Well, insulin, the more it's released, the more insulin resistant you can become. Biochemically, we know that insulin resistance is what drives the whole process of PCOS. So I know anybody who their labs or their symptoms or even body type will tell me they have PCOS. And then I know that they have insulin resistance. And I've seen it in labs and I haven't seen it in labs. Sometimes the lab work looks completely normal, but they still have insulin resistance. And that's if you get acne as an adult, if you can't lose weight. And so that you get those insulin spikes, and pretty soon the cell receptors are not sensitive to the insulin anymore. So the insulin just keeps going up and up. You gain more weight, you're more tired, you're more achy. And so the only food that doesn't cause an insulin spike are the fats. Proteins still will. They still will eventually break down into sugar. Everything eventually breaks down into sugar. But if you eat a lot of foods with fiber, And you can look on the glycemic tables of if it's a low glycemic fruit, it's got more fiber in it. It doesn't raise the blood sugar and the insulin as much. And that insulin resistance, it can cause a whole host of problems. It's really this metabolic dysfunction of the receptor site, too much insulin, and it can lead to more degeneration, like cancerous processes and things like that. Women with PCOS who have lifelong insulin resistance and estrogen dominance are more at risk for getting those hormone-sensitive cancers. And I do quite a bit of integrative cancer care as well. And, I look at my mom's history. She had pretty severe insulin resistance and then over time became diabetic. And then she got 2 primary cancers all at the same time. I do think hers were part of a toxic exposure as a child. So there can be a lot of things at play there. But that just is saying it's extremely important to keep your insulin levels under control. And when you have something like PCOS, it's harder for you than it is someone who doesn't have PCOS.
So really a good rule of thumb is to avoid the processed sugary foods. A good thing is to take a walk 30 minutes after you eat, especially your highest carbohydrate meal, which is usually a dinner, to walk, and that helps get the sugar out of your system and then the fiber. Mm-hmm. Lots of fiber will really help negate that sugary effect.
And it's hard to get in enough fiber. When I was in school, my nutrition teacher said, you need 40 grams of fiber. Try adding it up. It's near impossible to get 40 grams of fiber. So it takes work. It takes thought. It takes planning. It takes work. But it usually only takes work till you're used to it. Then it just becomes your norm and it's not work anymore. It's not stressful anymore because you've transitioned to a whole new thought process, a whole new way of eating, where you're going to have something with protein in the morning, and you're not going to skip lunch. You're going to eat lunch, and then you may have an afternoon snack, but then you're going to eat a dinner. And if you're doing intermittent fasting, you just move it down. The intermittent fasting you can do from 12 to 16 hours. That actually can be very helpful for blood sugar issues.
Yeah, really, especially giving your body a break to the rest period of your day can really help your body utilize the nutrients and things you've given it all day long.
Yeah. I remember years ago reading the book Why French Women Don't Get Fat, and it was all about portion control. It was like they eat whatever they want. They just don't eat much. And now we've got a few books out there on longevity, how to live a long life, and it's all caloric restriction. We get used to in this country the all you can eat, eating till you're full. In my Chinese medicine courses, we learned how the stomach only likes to be 80% full. If you overeat, you damage that stomach chi, and then you can have more nausea. You don't make good stomach acid. You don't make good digestive enzymes. You feel like you've got just a pit sitting there in the stomach.
Yeah, and movement. We overeat and we don't move enough here in the United States, and so we need to change that trend. Change the trend for our children and the future generations to get off the things that have us stagnant and sitting and get out moving more and getting more of those nutrients. I love the Mediterranean diet. Yeah. You can't really go wrong.
You can't go wrong. No. I wondered if any of our listeners were aware of the hearings they had in Congress last month about chronic disease in our food industry. And they had, a number of doctors come in and talk about our foods. And there have been a lot of things that have come out of that. There's talk about the Fruit Loops. The United States makes Fruit Loops for the world. And the ones that are sold in our own country are full of dyes, reds and yellows and those things that cause more attention deficit and they're just not good for us. And then they make them without those dyes to send them overseas. Like, why do we need them here? So there's something about that I think it's just really important for people to pay attention to and shop wisely, look at your labels. Kids are pickier now with eating than they ever have been. But the more you can just introduce them to foods, and I loved what you said about getting them cooking, getting them growing some food, they do better.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about having a garden is when my grandchildren come over that they go out and eat out of my garden. They actually think it's like the funnest thing in the world to go eat out of the garden. But it makes me happy because I know they're getting good food.
Yeah. You have chickens too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love to watch the chickens.
Yeah.
What is a good action item that maybe we could leave our listeners with? Awareness is one where you just raise that thought.
Absolutely. I still really like that first. Be aware of what you're eating and then what it would be pretty easy to get rid of. Everybody I speak to says, I need to eat more vegetables. I would say I need to eat more vegetables. It's hard to get them in. And so if you can just incorporate more vegetables, go outside your comfort zone, eat things that you haven't eaten, and try them. And love the idea of eating for the seasons. You know, as we go into these winter months, we have way more root vegetables. We're kind of going through squash and root vegetables and roasting those in the oven with some olive oil, salt, pepper, thyme, or rosemary. That's very Mediterranean, you know, to put lots of spice on it. And even a little balsamic vinegar or something if you like that vinegar flavor. And you can roast a bunch. And that's something that you can keep in your fridge for a couple of days, 2-3 days. They grow mold after 3 days, so not too long. If you can't eat it in 3 days, freeze it.
Right.
Foods that sit out either on the counter or in the fridge, they also get more histamine. And I see a lot of people with histamine issues these days too. So there's just one little caution of that.
Yeah, so start simple. If you're not used to cooking at all, try cooking 1 meal a week and get your family involved, get your spouse involved, have some fun trying something new with cooking. Being mindful of nutrition is probably the best way that I feel like people can manage their health.
Yeah,
it's something that you really do have control over.
Mm-hmm. And you just start somewhere. Just start somewhere. You know, make up a shopping list and look at the ingredients. If you're not reading labels, look at the labels, and that will give you a good idea of what to avoid. When, you know, there are some simple things like if it's got more than 5 ingredients, don't eat it, you know, and you can even see the difference in foods, the same foods that they made 30 years ago and now they were simpler 30 years ago, and now that they put a lot more stuff in it.
That's true.
And the stuff is not good.
Right. If you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Well, even the vitamins in our most of our breads, most everything processed uses bleached flour, and then it's fortified. And most of the flours have potassium bromide in it, and we eat that, and that it makes us tired. So if you eat bread and you're eating potassium bromide, not only is it wrecking your thyroid, because that bromide will replace the iodine, but it makes you sleepy, achy. It's not good for us.
Well, we hope that you have taken some good advice from our doctor here that will help you improve your health this episode. We look forward to your comments. We want to know maybe what you're going to change up this week, what you really want to know more about when it comes to nutrition, what could be really helpful that we could help you with your nutritional needs. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. And in the meantime, live on purpose and live happy.